learning about history of China this semester and trying to choose just some things that I found like the most interesting is gonna be a little hard because we learned so much and most of it was like really interesting to me. But I probably have to say the most interesting things we learned about was the Song, the Qing dynasties, and probably at the very end with Mao and how he ran things. And I mostly want to say Song because when we started off, it wasn't really like, oh, in the Song you had these things and these things and these dates and these people. It was more like, okay, well, first we have to look at China and compare to the West how both of the countries started up. And the question is geography destiny? It was interesting because I never really thought of China that way and how like China was isolated from the world and Europe was in its own little place and how both of these two countries grew up differently and how another topic we talked about was the gods, like basically I don't want to say religion but I can't really come up with a word right now. And in Europe, God created everything in 6 days, and everything was just given to men. Whereas in China, Pangu, he created the world, but men with the canon of Yao, Yun, and Shun, probably put that in the wrong order, the canon of Yao, canon of Shun, and canon of Yu, they and then there were the three sovereign kings who gave them domesticated animals, created civilization, created family, a bunch of other stuff. And that's in the wrong order, I know. But where, like in the West, a higher being gave men the tools and resources, I guess you would say. But in China, man had to do everything by itself, and gods aren't as important to China. Well, I shouldn't say that, but like you see gods die. There's Di and Tian. Like suddenly, with when the Zhou takes over with Wu, he just says that Tian you have lost the mandate of heaven from Tian. So suddenly, at that point, Tian comes in and is now the god, and Di suddenly disappears. Earlier I was talking about like is geography destiny, and now after we've talked about it, because I never really thought about it before, is geography destiny? Yeah, I think it is. Why is Western culture so different from Eastern culture? Well, Chinese people, like I've used this analogy, well not analogy, but I've used this before, where like if we were to raise two children in different places, they would grow up differently because of the environment that they grew up in. So like you could say that is similar to countries, whereas in the West you have Europe and they've grown up differently, and China they've been isolated and they've raised their. In China you have another civilization grow that's completely different. So I think it's really interesting how like this is probably the reason why both our cultures, the East and the West cultures, are so different. What I liked learning about the Qing dynasty was that when I was younger, we also learned about the Qing, and it was definitely not as interesting as this. It was basically, he was a horrible person, he killed many people, he built the Great Wall of China, and buried people under it. That was pretty much what we learned when I was younger, but now it's a lot more in-depth, and we're now, with reading like a historian, it's like, is Sima Qian's taking on this, is it actually true? Because the Han Emperor Wu told him to castrate himself, and because in China that's the greatest humiliation, because family means everything to Chinese people. So would Sima Qian make the Qing look better, or but he also would want to write a good history, because he on his father's deathbed he promised his father that he would finish his history. So it was like would he be more inclined to lie and make the Ching look good, or would he be more inclined to make the Han look good or tell the truth? And now that we look back at it, it's like some of the things that happened to Ching or what Ching did was kind of outrageous. And when I was younger, I didn't really question it, but going through the steps of being like a historian, now I look at Ching, it's like, oh, he did a lot of great things, unified the country, but is it like I'm still questioning like things he did, like his tomb. He got many people to work on that, and many people died because of it. And there were some really weird things that we read, some rumors of him, like a star fell and a villager, somebody scratched in, like, he wrote something bad about the Ching and because of that he killed the whole village, and just some really outrageous things like that. He passed a mountain and he got angry at the mountain spirit for stopping his way, and he chopped down all the trees and painted the mountain red. Just like some really outrageous stories like that. Now I'm like questioning why. But my classmate, he had a really good metaphor, analogy type thing, like for Ching, and it was like Ching's department is like a rose, whereas he did many beautiful things, but he killed many people, which would be the thorns on the rose. When I was younger, I didn't really study history all that much when I was younger. My parents and I, we never talked about politics. I still don't know whether my family is Republican or Democrat. My family just doesn't enjoy talking about these things. It's kind of touchy where I come from, or how I was raised. So, learning about Mao, like all I knew was Mao was horrible, and that was it. Nobody would say why. So, okay, I grew up learning that, okay, Mao is horrible, don't question it. But now I can see, like, why, just the long march, how, like, communism kind of started in China, like, and then how Mao took over, the nationalists, how they were kind of corrupt, and our editorial on if, like, was Mao a monster, and he had many reforms, like, in my editorial, I said that he was a monster, and mainly because there were things like his 100 Flowers campaign, where he says, like, everybody, you're free to tell me what you don't like about the communist government, and you won't get in trouble for it. And then he kind of went back on that, and then accused people of being rightist, and then some people were imprisoned, and a lot of people went to work agriculture, and just this happening basically screwed a lot of people over. And how during the Great Leap Forward, how he wanted to moderate it after seeing how badly things were going, like people were starving, there was a famine was about to happen, and he wanted to change it, like, because people who wanted to impress him were not saving any food for themselves intentionally. People went to them, collected a lot of wheat and grains, and inflated these figures, and because of this, many villagers, peasants were starving. And when Mao found out, he was like, oh, I've got to change this, and his advisors knew this too, but when they met, Mao's like paranoia, like that they were trying to take over his power or something, that stopped this moderation from happening. And then there was a great famine and 3 million people died. After the revolution, Mao went back against his trusted people he used to trust, and Deng Xiaoping and Liu Shaoqi. Deng Xiaoping was exiled, and Liu Shaoqi died of cancer somewhere in this little house. And I want to say, like, Mao, he wasn't all that bad. Like, he realized his problem, like what he did wrong, and tried to rehabilitate Deng Xiaoping. And Deng Xiaoping later on went to rule China. He was the leader of China after Mao died. So I think it was just that when you're going through something, you think it's good, but you can't really tell that it's bad until you look back onto it. And recently, there was this Chinese ambassador, I want to say, that he was asked about, oh, what do you think was the French Revolution's role on the West? And this guy he said, well, it's too soon to tell. And it's just this Chinese thing is like, oh, we've been around for a really long time, so we know that we need to be patient, and we can't really tell about things until we look back on them. I think it's just like Mao, he didn't realize that it was bad to this cultural revolution, just realized that this cultural revolution was bad until like afterwards, like, oh, look what I've done. And I think that's the case in most situations, in many situations. It's like, oh, I think it's good at first, but then you realize, oh, no, it's not really. Like, just thinking of this thing where you just go in and do it because you think it's good, but then looking back on it, it's actually, oh, wait, we probably shouldn't have done that. During Tiananmen Square, people wanted more democracy in China, and the government like tried to put a stop to them. Many people died, and then we have that famous picture of Tank Man just standing up to the government, to the tank. And I think that was another example of this, like where it's like, oh, like maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We shouldn't have done that, because if we look at like now, people look back to that event and it's like, oh, the government's actually taking care of the people of China. That their policies and reforms that were going on, it was to help the people, and we were just like a hindrance to that because we were rioting and protesting. Currently, like right now, looking back on Tiananmen Square, it's like, was it good? Well, China's economy is really growing right now, and who knows, in a few years it might surpass the United States. And was it wrong for people to riot? Well, I don't know. After like they were promised like Iron Rice Bowl, where like education and healthcare and everything was promised, but that was taken away from them. So, and now, is there a large wealth gap? Yes, there kind of is. So it's hard to say. Like, learned many things in this class, and a lot of what I learned beforehand was kind of like Ching being, oh, he was evil, and Mao was just evil. But no, now I've been able. This class gave me more of an opportunity to question those ideas and things. So it's been a very enjoyable class, and I learned a lot.